the last presentation. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Leah. So I was very happy to present in here. I'm very happy that you guys come. So today my topic is about improvising in the Pentatonic Scales with the Chinese instrument, and it used in alleviating the symptom of young adults with trauma experience. So before I start, what is Pentatonic Scales? So in front of me, this is my instrument. So I would like to let you guys to listen about it and remember it, because afterwards we're going to present about this sound. Okay, ready? This is the Pentatonic Scale. Okay, so here's my content, like introduction, literature review, research question, methods, and the outcomes. So why I would choose music, Chinese music as my topic. So I realized that like in mental health care units, we always use music first. But I found that some research, they're always talking about music instrument. Where is Chinese instrument? So I realized that actually Chinese instrument could be welcome into this setting, in the music therapy setting, and especially for the young adults who have traumatic experience. And improvising in pentatonic scales could also help them to increase their self-confidence and allow them to engage in the improvisational activities. And now, before I start, I would like to talk about the trauma-informed music therapy, which is also why I will focus on building this pentatonic scale in the improvisation. So this is the principle of the trauma-informed care. Today we will focus on safety and trust. Okay? And before we start, you might ask me about what makes Chinese music so different. So we can look at these two words. The left-hand side is music, the Chinese character of music, and the left-hand side is medicine. Do you notice that they are actually very similar? Yeah, what's the difference between these two words? Yes, the top. Good job. So in our Chinese character, this on top of it is actually and means grass, which is also means a herbal. Chinese medicine is made with herbal, if you notice that. So in a very long time ago, that Chinese people think that music can actually kind of like medicine, right? So this concept is already have a long history in the Chinese history. And most importantly, there's another word too. The music, medicine, and happy. They're also using the same Chinese character, right? So my purpose is, how can we help those people by using this Chinese instrument to find the happiness they might lost a very long time ago, right? This is my idea came from. And now let's talk about the Chinese music and the pentatonic scale. So according to the research, the traditional Chinese medical literature that had talked about music is actually linked with the mood and behavior. And it can help to promote the balance between the body, the mind, and the spirit. And different modes of the music can actually have different effects on the body. For example, the heart, the liver, etc. So let's talk about the pentatonic scale. Does anyone know about pentatonic scale? Yeah. Yeah. And what makes the pentatonic scale very different is actually, according to the Chinese music theory, all the scales actually based on the pentatonic scales. So we also have the characters of each name, each tone is Gong, Sun, Ga, Zi, Yu. So these are the 5 basic pentatonic scales. So what's the difference between it? And why I mentioned about it, it's actually similar to the Western, we will say do, re, mi, so, la, right? But we will write it in numbers. So why I will mention about that, because later we'll have activity related to it. So now let's talk about different kind of mode. So we have 5 modes, right? So each mode is actually the first note. It starts with different notes. So for example, the Gong is start with the C, and the Shang will start with the D, etc. So that's why I would like to introduce these, and these modes is all based in pentatonic scale. Let's go to the literature review. Anything interesting find it in the literature review? Yes. So here on my throat, how can I find it from the literature review too long. So, but you can take a look at it. I have talked about how I generate and include in the criteria and what I ignore about it. And then I find out two things in the literature review, which is the first thing is Chinese instrument, these pentatonic scales can create a right feeling to improvise and very easy to improvise with. So when you're hearing this pentatonic scales, right, you just feel like, it's hard to see anything is wrong. It always sounds very peaceful, very harmonic. Any chord you play is always harmonic with the pentatonic scales. And according to the research, Northdorf and Robert, they also use pentatonic scale, which is Chinese pentatonic scale and also Japanese pentatonic scale in the session. And the theory, I find out that the pentatonic scale actually can provide a safe atmosphere for the client with trauma. So according to the music therapy handbook, so they have talking about they also have some session in the case study. They're also using setting all the instruments in pentatonic scale, because when they play it, the client will say, I feel very relaxing, I feel very safe. So this is a research literature review that I find it. Okay, time to the research question. So I was focusing on the traumatized group. So my research question is this one. How does improvisation in the pentatonic scales on Chinese instrument can elevate the emotional symptom and issue with the developmental skills in young adults with the traumatic experience? I have do it in 3 areas. We were looking on it. The first one is copying. The second one is emotional regulation. And the first one is resilience. So how do I do the research and how do I assess the research? So first, I would do it in a qualitative phenomenological research. And how I collect the data is based on the observation, semi-structured interview, and also the trauma impact assessment to assess their symptoms from the trauma. And the participants should be aged 18 to 22 because we are doing young adult, right? And they have experience about the traumatic events, referral by the psychologist and their English speaker. And how we analyze the data is each question is answered in a semi-structured interview and the observation notes and the assessment symptoms. So the group section, what we will design is, for example, they will gathering together. We will in this setting, we will gathering together. And we will also listening to the Guzheng sounds and the songs. Also, we will provide an opportunity for the client to try the Guzheng and improvise together. And at the end, we will create a song list and write the observation notes. So this is a semi-structured interview question. So mostly, a lot of people, when they're finding the data, when they're finding the result, they will ask which area they have improved very specifically. But because we're doing in a traumatic experience unit, they're more about the feelings. They're more about how they feel about it. So this is the reason why not all my questions really related to the feelings. And the outcome that I would like to talk about it is I found that is it really work in pentatonic scale? Is it really work? So in this research, I found that it's actually from the trauma informed music therapy research. So you can take a look at the method they have used. For example, it's music relaxation, and then we can see their entertainment. So these 2 areas that think about if we put Guzheng music, it's actually the same outcome we can do it about it. For example, this client, she needs to improve about the copying and also the emotional regulation. So by listening to the music relaxation, we can also help to use them to manage the stress and anxiety. And also the entertainment, we can learn about how can she use the music to slow it down. So actually the outcome is similar to it, but if we put Chinese music inside, they will also have similar effect of it. And last but not least, because when I talk about that, we will improvise together. So this way we can talk about is cooperating with the clients. And this can also help them to learn about, I can have a way to express myself. I can have a way to learn about myself. And there's also mentioning about the copying and emotional regulation. So these are the outcomes that I found that, it might improve Yeah. So like the copying, emotional regulation, we can see the research about it. And then we can see resilience. I put a question mark here because sometimes resilience we need to see about how they're facing in that situation. What is the emotion about it? So let's make some music. Yes. Okay. So I've talked about the pentatonic scale. So I would like to ask you a little help. So these row. So can you help me to sing this note? Da. Great. So when I do number 1, sing this note. Da. Okay, Hannah, Howard, these row. Can you sing Ray? Ray. Very good. And Kate, and then to John, can you sing me? Try it again. Try with me. Me. Very good. And then Matthew and to Bradley, yeah, can you help me to sing so? And then last Mew and la. Very good. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay? Put it in your mind. And when I show you my finger, please sing your notes. Okay? Ready? Do. Very good. Re. Mi. So. La. Very good. Okay, so now, Isha, when I sing do, can you sing do with me? And then I will try to improvise with my gujan. Ready? Okay. That's why I put it in my setting. Now I have 2 conclusions I would like to talk about it because I realized that each person will have to respond to trauma in their own way. So as a music therapist, we need to actually learn about the trauma-informed approach to create a partnership with it. And the reason why I really want to bring this Chinese instrument in this setting because I realized that maybe 100 years ago, music therapy in other people they will think that it's a new thing. But how about we can also think that even anything can create specifically music therapy, and that's how we can become partners. So keep it in your mind, anything you think it's new, just be happy to bring it up, just like this. Thank you. Oh yeah, also if you want to try the gujan and you don't have a gujan, recommend you, if you have iOS, just go there and you can also use it in the client setting. And that's all. Is there any question? Woo! Okay. Yes.
Do you see other instruments being useful, like even for the client to play? I think there are like some other harps that use the pentatonic scale. Even if you were to play that and then let the client play the harp.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think about that too because harp is also like gujan. It sounds very common, right? But harp is a little bit different than gujan because when you look at my instrument here, we don't have fa and t, but in harp we do have it. So, like for example, some people they might also play the fa and t, but they can't really immediately learn the pentatonic notes in the harp. But this one's like I'm just playing around, and it always sounds like the same because they remove the fa and t notes. That's why I feel like this, I know that a lot of instruments, they can play in pentatonic scales, but this instrument is set in pentatonic scales, so that's why it's a difference between other instruments. Yeah. Any comments? Yes?
A related question, because I know that with monochord
like drone harps and other things that are also therapeutic. I'm wondering if you saw any comparisons or there's any kind of research yet on that, where
You mean
pentatonic versus like other sort of harps, like what's specific about pentatonic?
So like for example, like I do see some research about the Pentatonic Scale, but not that much. Usually they were using like guitar and how like they're talking about it. So I have read about it and I realized that how they create a safe environment for the like clients to improvise and easy to improvise. That's the main point. That's why I also pointed out in the literature review, which is really good. Like that's like really opened my mind. That's why I would think like maybe an instrument can also do the similar effect of it. So it's based on, like actually my research, all the things is based on the Western theory and I translate it to my Chinese instrument. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So you talked about pentatonic scale and trauma.
Yeah.
So why is the pentatonic scale better for trauma over like a major scale?
That's very interesting. So I was talking about like major scale, we have like the whole do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, right? So when I was digging it about like why the Chinese pentatonic scale or like pentatonic scale can create a sound, because when you're playing the chord, like sometimes when your client playing fa, like in T notes, it's hard for you to immediately to find a chord that can also matching with that notes, right? Like fa and T. Sometimes it just sounds like it's like have a contrast on it. But pentatonic scale is no matter what key and what mode you're playing, like what chord you're playing, it always sounds harmonic to each other. So for the clients who have traumatic experience, that they might also feel that they haven't accepted, like haven't always like they will lost the interest about doing the improvisation, and they might think that I'm playing wrong. But why it's like makes so much difference is this always create the right notes. It's hard, impossible to play in the wrong notes, and it can also help with traumatized kids. They will have also increase their confidence of playing it, and they will feel safe to playing it because no matter what they're playing, it's gonna sound good. So that's the difference between why I didn't play a major scale instead of pentatonic